Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, a poor lass from America lost her leg after a shark bite while she was swimming in the ocean after a scuba dive. Also, an incredibly rare encounter with a 6-gill shark in Canada. The Ghostnet Campaign celebrates a record haul in honour of Paul Watson, and Germany has issued an arrest warrant for a diver after damage to the Nord Stream. First news story is a US teenage scuba diver has lost her leg following a shark encounter in the Caribbean Sea off Belize. Annabelle Carlson, 15, from Aspen, Colorado, was on holiday with her family. She had been on a boat diving trip with the Belize Pro Dive Center, sampling Lighthouse Reef near Half Moon Cay on the morning of the 6th of August. Carlson had removed her dive gear and then re-entered the water for a swim when the shark went for her right leg. The tour guides recovered her from the water and took her to a Belize Coast Guard base, where paramedics succeeded in stabilizing her so that she could be airlifted by a helicopter to a medical center in Belize City. Quoting, "The quick action from the emergency response team in Belize saved her life." That was a quote from family friend Aya Jewell, who has started a GoFundMe campaign to cover Carlson's medical care. She described the odds against such an incident happening as 1 in 11.5 million. The schoolgirl has now been flown back to the USA for treatment at a specialist trauma center. Quoting, "Annabelle will have a very long road of recovery ahead of her." Sharks in the area tend to be Caribbean reef sharks, which tend to be non-aggressive. The Belize Minister of the Blue Economy, Andre Perez, told TV station Channel 5, "This is a very rare case. While we are saddened about it, we look at the facts. For the past 30 years as such, we have never had this type of accident as such. I believe there is nothing to be worried about. We are safe." Yeah, a terrible accident, and there's not much to be said about it, really. I think we all understand. No one understands the likelihood of this kind of situation happening. It does occur, but it is incredibly rare. That being said, you do have to still have your wits about you when you're in these kind of areas. So yeah, just make sure that you're being safe. There was a different shark encounter in Canada's Pacific coast. It's not unknown for this to happen because DiveNet have reported on a similar encounter in May last year, but it's rare enough to get marine biologists quite excited in the sighting of a blunt-nosed 6-gill shark hanging out in shallow waters off Canada's Pacific coast. Diver Mitchell Hewitt said that it's the find of a lifetime, and he's been diving every single day this summer to try and find one of these sharks, and it finally happened on the 8th of August. The field marine biologist who works for Keystone Environmental is more usually engaged in observing the behaviour of the area's cephalopods and lumpsuckers. He spotted the shark whilst diving off the community off Lions Bay in Howe Sound to the north of Vancouver. The shark, which was a male juvenile that he reckoned to be about 2.5 meters long, was swimming over the seabed at a depth of about 15 meters. Hewitt and his group were able to spend about 10 minutes observing the shark, which even decided to swim between his legs at one point, and they did get quite a few photos. Blunt-nosed 6-gills, they're also known as cow sharks because they're quite slow and lumbering, mainly because they're typically found at depths between 100 and 2,000 meters, so they really try and preserve their energy. Though juveniles occasionally venture into shallow waters at night in search of prey off British Columbia, females also sometimes come into the coast to give birth with litters that can number more than 100 pups at any one time. The species is one of the world's largest sharks and can grow up to 6 meters long and weigh 600 kilos. So that's pretty cool to see a species such as rare as that. Over the weekend of the 3rd and 4th of August, the dedicated team of the Captain Paul Watson Foundation UK Ghostnet Campaign returned to the North Sea, once again surpassing their record with an impressive haul of abandoned, lost and discarded fishing gear. Luke Bullis said, quote, "We are proud to continue honouring Paul Watson's lifelong work by defending and protecting our oceans whilst we fight for him to be released from custody in Greenland. On Saturday, during our dive on the wreck of the Murchiston, we faced some of our most challenging conditions, yet our crew on the vessel Spectre worked tirelessly to retrieve a massive haul of 9 pots over 400 metres of rope and nets. Among the debris, we freed several fish, lobster, crabs and starfish trapped in the gear. This remarkable effort put a strain on our vessel, the Spectre, and left us with barely any space for the divers. This highlights our growing need for a larger vessel to continue our mission effectively over the coming years. And yeah, if you look at the photograph, it's a fairly typical British diving ship. I've been on a few like this with the lift at the back, but you can mainly see ghost gear just all over the deck and seating areas. So yeah, they're gonna need a bigger boat before long. Quoting on Sunday, we revisited the Giuseppe, a wreck we dived twice before this season to remove the remaining ghost gear and mark the site as cleared. During this dive, we also freed a crab entangled in netting around its claw and other wildlife. Our dives are always demanding, but by strictly following safety protocols, we strive to make them as safe as possible. These efforts are a testament to the lifelong work of Paul Watson, who is currently in in a Greenland prison, fighting extradition to Japan. A huge thank you to our incredible crew who tirelessly dedicate their time and effort, some travelling long distances, all in the name of Paul Watson and direct action. Your commitment and passion are truly inspiring. Together we continue the fight to protect our oceans. So this latest haul is a record size and did put a massive strain on the Spectre, prompting the foundation to start a fundraising campaign for a new boat. I'll pop a link to our news article, which has a link down at the bottom for you to if you are interested in donating, and you can click on that later. In a news article from The Guardian, German authorities have issued an arrest warrant for a Ukrainian man on suspicion of being a part of a team that blew up the Nord Stream gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea, according to local media reports. The man, who's a diving instructor identified only as Volodymyr Z, is last believed to have lived in Poland and is alleged to have dived 80 meters to the seabed at night to plant explosive devices on the pipelines which ran from Russia to Germany in September 2022. The explosive devices detonated on the 26th of September, 7 months after the start of the full-blown Russian invasion of Ukraine. 4 large gas leaks were discovered on both Nord Stream pipelines close to the Danish islands of Bornholm, putting the pipelines out of use. Seismic Institutes had registered 2 underwater explosions on the pipelines, which had been built between 2010 and 2012 to transport Russian gas to Germany. At the time of the explosion, they were not in operation, but they still contained gas. According to reports, Germany first asked Poland to arrest the man back in June, but he's thought to have gone underground, according to security sources cited in those reports. The German Prosecutor's General Office, which has been investigating the case even after Denmark and Sweden dropped their respective inquiries, has declined to comment. Polish authorities confirmed on Wednesday that a European warrant for his arrest had been received. The National Public Prosecutor's Office said in an email to the news agency AFP, quote, "Ultimately, Volodymyr Z was not detained as he left the territory of Poland at the beginning of July this year, crossing the Polish-Ukrainian border." The media outlets also identified another man and a woman who are also Ukrainian diving instructors as having allegedly been involved in the attack, though no further arrest warrants have been issued for them. Earlier on, the investigation focused on a sailing yacht called the Andromeda, on which traces of the explosive HMX, also known as Octogen, were found in July 2023. The boat was rented in Germany by someone using a Google account registered in Ukraine. The crew members reportedly used false identities, including a Romanian and a Bulgarian passport, and that of a Ukrainian soldier who denies involvement and whose identity is believed to have been stolen. The yacht, a 50-foot Bavaria cruiser, started out in Rockstort Harbour and stopped off on the German island of Rügen the islands of Bornholm and Kristiansand in Denmark, followed by Sandhamn in Sweden and Koloberg in Poland before returning to Rostock. Vladimir Z was identified after the white Ukrainian registered Citroen he was driving on Rügen was caught speeding by a police camera, which captured the image of his face on September the 8th, 2022. Despite evidence that Vladimir Z may have had the backing of high-ranking military officials, there is no suggestion that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was aware of the attack or that it was state-sanctioned. Russia and the West have blamed one another for being behind the disruption of the pipelines, which stood as an ugly reminder for many of German dependence on Russian gas. Everyone accused has so far denied involvement. But that's a pretty impressive dive. You got to hand it to them if they were just doing it on scuba. An 80-meter dive alone is an ordeal, let alone at night, let alone like carrying and setting up and planting explosives, trying to locate the pipeline. Not that I'm endorsing blowing up pipelines or anything. I'm just saying the dive itself is rather impressive. An influential Marine Biological Association annual report for 2023 covering one of the most active areas for scuba diving in the United Kingdom is saying that marine life is changing in the southwest of England. The MBA's 138-page report, the 10th in the series, is edited by Dr. Keith Hiscox and reflects the work of hundreds of volunteer citizen scientists and professionals working in the southwest, according to the Plymouth-based organisation. It says that the findings help to explain how the marine environment is changing and whether management of human activities and impacts is making a difference to the health of the seas. 2023 saw the most turtles recorded in the southwest for 9 years, with most of the reports concerning cold-shocked juvenile loggerheads or Kemp's Ridley turtles, according to the report. Meanwhile, high numbers of cetaceans were noted coming inshore, continuing the trends that began in around 2015, although the MBA says the research into the reasons for this has so far been hampered by lack of funding. More seals were recorded dead among Cornwall in 2023 than born, with half of the dead animals less than a year old. Autumn storms in particular seriously affected seal pups and juveniles. 2023 also saw the largest seal disturbance on record when human interference caused some 250 of them to stampede off 2 adjacent beaches. In May, a 3-meter sub-adult female small-tooth sand tiger shark was found floating dead off Lyme Regis, following another reported to have stranded in Hampshire. They were both more than 300 kilometers north of any previous observation. Several unfamiliar bony fish such as variable blennies, comas and auxiliary sea breams became more established in the southwest waters. However, conspicuously for divers, there were declines in the occurrence in abundance for some species, such as cold water plumose anemones and inshore areas. There were no increases in extent or abundance of warm water, seashore and seabed species that might suggest significant climate change effects, according to the NBA, although common octopus eggs were recorded, suggesting that the Mediterranean species is breeding in UK waters. The NBA says that climate change will continue to benefit species such as black sea bream, red mullet and anchovy, whilst others such as lemon sole, Atlantic cod and haddock would decline. Quoting, excellent volunteer work continues in the southwest to remove plastics from the marine environment. Analysis of debris from coastal cleans in 2023 by the Clean Ocean Sailing Organization also highlighted high-density polyethylene, or HDPE, plastic bottles and nets and ropes to be the most commonly removed debris. So it's always interesting to see that they're like keeping track of these kind of things and individual species, and the more that, like, yeah, as they say, citizen scientists can help with this like data collection and just report these kind of sightings, it just makes their data much more reliable. Funding awarded to a Manx Scuba Diving Club will, quote, provide more opportunities for people of all ages to get involved. That was from the chairman of the club. The £2,500 grant was awarded to enable the Isle of Man Sub-Aqua Club to offer free pool training to 8 young people each winter for the next 2 years. The Manx Lottery Trust funding will cover the cost of equipment and the use of swimming pool facilities for training sessions. Lee Morris of the club said that by subsidising training sessions for young people, the club hoped to, quote, inspire the next generation of divers and foster a love for the sport. Part of the funding will be used to buy standardised training equipment in various sizes with the aim of broadening its offering, in particular to young people. Mr. Morris said, quote, the new equipment will allow us to significantly expand our training programs and provide more opportunities for people of all ages to get involved. So yeah, they're going to buy a bunch of new dive gear, and it's going to help pay for pool sessions. So yeah, that would be nice, and they can spend a bit more time like advertising to get the next generation of divers in and train them up, which is cool. And finally, PATI is pushing for further expansion with what it says are exclusive deals for its over 6,600 dive centres and resorts to get directly involved in next year's European dive show season. It has 99 spots available where they can exhibit their offerings alongside those of the training agency itself. It reckons that it's an opportunity for dive businesses to reach an estimated 330,000 divers and potential divers over a total of 22 show days. PATI EMEA Managing Director Dave Murray says PATI has invested in having a significant presence at the 2025 European Dive Show circuit, providing strong business opportunities for members to reach the European diving market. In 2023, 41% of global PATI certifications came from students with a home location in Europe, Middle East and Africa, with the majority of European divers known to travel the world, ranging from Thailand, Indonesia and Australia to Colombia and the Caribbean. PATI members who take up the offer are promised premium positioning within shows and additional support from PATI, which will be managing the organisation and logistics of each exhibition and marketing them through its pre-show communications. The lineup includes the UK's biggest dive show, the Go Diving Show at Stoneleigh from the 1st and 2nd of March next year, as well as Boot Dusseldorf, Europe's largest indoor boat and water sports show in Germany, which has one hall dedicated to scuba diving, and the long-standing Salon de la Plongée in France near the start of the year. There are also 3 shows in the Netherlands, Italy and Spain in the first quarter. Quoting, dive shows provide a unique opportunity to get your dive businesses in front of thousands of the most highly engaged recreational and professional divers that are actively looking for their next diving adventure, course, trip, or job opportunity. The dive industry thrives because of its global community, united by a shared love of the ocean. We think there's nothing more powerful than presenting PATI members side by side in our PATI village to showcase the best that the industry has to offer. Registrations are open to 100% PATI members up until the end of August 2024, so you don't have long, with the limited spaces allocated on a first-come, first-served basis. And yeah, the PATI stand that they brought to the Go Diving show was huge, and the way that the way that it's placed, it's at like right at a bottleneck as well, so everyone has to pass by it. So they're basically inviting people to come on the stand with them. They'll help them out to promote their dive center. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity for anyone that's interested. So if you do either know or run a dive center, then yeah, definitely get in contact. Nothing interesting that I can think of as far as new dive equipment this week. So jumping into Ask Mark questions. The first one comes from Giles McLean 6647, who says there's a lot of information out there about tech diving and the kit that you need, but only a little about where to clip it all off. What are your recommendations for both kit and placement? Also for the Apex Ascent reel, would you use a double-ender bolt snap or a tie-on one? So clipping things off, you try to avoid clipping things onto D-rings as much as possible. They tend to get stored in your thigh pockets. So on a dry suit, you typically have thigh pockets, one on the left, one on the right leg, and GUE has a good standardization in that everything on the right hand side in your right thigh pocket is your like safety emergency type pocket. So you've got like your backup mask, your backup DSMB should your primary fail, a backup spool, those kind of things. I tend to keep a line cutter in an external pocket as well, just because that's handy to have. Whereas your left thigh pocket is like your utilities, your main like tools that you really like intend to use on the dive. So yeah, your primary DSMB, those kind of things, and the spool and whatnot. The only thing that you do really have clipped to you is a backup torch, which I tend to keep on my left shoulder strap. You clip it to the left D-ring, and then you use a ranger band, which is like a section of inner tubing to like hold it to that shoulder strap so it doesn't dangle, and then it's really your submersible pressure gauge that's clipped off to your waist D-ring. That's really about it. Otherwise, I mean, if I'm using something, then I'll clip it to my right D-ring on my shoulder, and that way it's like close to hand. But if I know that I'm not going to use it in like the next few minutes or something, I'll stow it away in a pocket so it's neat and it's out of the way. For the Apex Ascent reel, would you use a double ender bolt snap or a tie-on one? A tie-on one, just because it's a bit more secure. When you're attaching a double ender onto anything, any kind of like eyelet, then you do run the risk of it like twisting in a certain way that it opens the gate and it can release itself. So you do have to be quite careful about that. So I tie a bolt snap on, and we also don't like metal on metal. It's there are a few problems with it, but yeah, you just basically tie on a small bolt snap, or depending on whether you're in warm or cold waters, yeah, it just makes life a little easier. Felix Bestanding 4358 says, "Hi Mark, I'm wondering about your opinion on to all the specialty courses you can do in scuba diving, and which one you can absolutely recommend. Maybe you can make a tier list." It kind of depends what you define as specialties, because things like rescue, I don't really classify it as a specialty. It's still continuing education, but Nitrox is the easy one that everyone recommends, and for good reason. It starts to like get you in that like breathing different gases and the like physics and physiology and biology and whatnot, and what's going on with different gas mixes. It like introduces you into that side of things. Anything that will have you in an overhead environment is definitely worth getting some proper instruction, so that you know that you're doing it in the safest and most proper way, and you're using the equipment properly. So it depends. If you're never going to go near a cave system or a shipwreck, then why bother? But if you are intending to delve into some shipwrecks, then yeah, it's definitely worth, because it opens your eyes to kind of things that you should be thinking about and considering, and yeah, you're just going to be that much more switched on should you come across that kind of environment. Otherwise, a lot of them are needless, shall we say. You can learn through doing things like peak performance buoyancy. Just the more you practice, you can just do it by yourself. Fish ID, those kind of things. Yeah, just get a fish ID book and just challenge yourself. It will be good to like go on the course, because you'll learn about the different shapes and features on a fish and what to focus on to be able to identify it more accurately in the future. But these are things that you can learn by yourself. It's just going to be a lot harder. Whereas if you have the time and the money, then yeah, you can pay for someone to do it. But yeah, there's a million specialities out there, and almost anyone can create their own speciality. It's where like the member can do all the work and then submit it, and then the training agency will create that speciality. There's no like magic behind it. It's just whoever wants to put in the effort. But yeah, myself, I only have a handful of specialities. you just do the ones that are like relevant, and there are certain amounts of like crossover as well. So something like side mount or like entry into tech is a good one to just, you start to learn about like side mounted stage cylinders and swapping gases underwater. Some others like specific rebreather ones, they're like obligatory. You have to have the one for your particular unit. But yeah, there's a lot of specialities out there that you really don't need. Mark EH4IB says, how do you look after your ears? Bad equalizing can cancel a dive holiday. Yeah, it's not always equalizing. The most common one, or at least for me, is otitis externa, which is just swimmer's ear. So the water saturating the skin in your in your ear canals, as it were, it causes the skin to swell. And the little microbes and things, they get into the gap, which cause irritation, and you get that like ear pain, and you think, oh, I forgot to equalize, or I didn't equalize properly. No, it's actually just a mild ear infection. You can get swimmer's ear drops after the dive, and that helps to dry out the water and kill some of the microbes. Also, trying to avoid using like ear swabs. For two reasons. One, your earwax is a natural hydrophobic barrier that helps to prevent water from actually reaching the skin. But also, even though it's like cotton wool swabs, it can still scratch the skin in your ear. It's very thin and very delicate. So yeah, even cotton wool can make these little scratches, and of course the microbes are going to love that. So yeah, for like a week or two beforehand, and just don't poke anything in your ears if you really can avoid it. But yeah, after the dive, use some kind of swim ear treatment. Kurzik Dagger says, I'm looking for a storage solution, pockets to be more precise. When I'm diving in my wetsuit, I've seen there are some shorts available with double pockets. Yeah, we call them tech shorts. As is seen in dry suits, but I usually wear a 7mm diving vest over the top of my wetsuit. It doesn't seem to be comfortable to add a third layer over the top of it. Do you know if there's any vest with pockets already on it? Are there any good solutions for a wetsuit diver to store their DSMB and spare mask and whatnot? Yeah, tech shorts are my first thought, but yeah, if you're putting them over the top of something that you've already put over the top, that is going to get quite clunky. You can find some that I call like crotchless, which are just like a waistband, the thigh pockets, and then a Velcro strap just around like your lower thigh. That might be an option, but we also get quite a few. I think a Dive Right and maybe IST make, if you search for like thigh pocket scuba, they make like drop down pockets. So you'll have a webbing strap with a clip at the top of it that you attach to your waistband. Then below that you have the thigh pocket, and then around the thigh pocket you get the elastic strap. It's kind of like a holster, like a thigh holster for a gun. It straps to your leg, and then it straps to your waistband so it doesn't slide down your legs. And there are a few of those out there. I know Scuba Pro made one for their Hydros Pro. I can't remember what's at the top of that. I think it just clips to a D-ring. So yeah, there are options out there. You can of course glue pockets to your wetsuit. Divers have been doing that since, well, it's true, decades. It can get a bit messy, so practice, and you don't need quite as much contact adhesive as you think you do. But yeah, that's definitely a choice. But yeah, my recommendation would be going down like the Dive Right thigh pocket. I think they called it with daisy chain. That sticks in my mind, the daisy chain. But yeah, there are alternates out there. And that's it for another week. So yeah, pretty quiet as far as the dive equipment side of things. I don't remember seeing anything new. But I mean, last week it was only a couple of new colours of a new colour fin. And Scuba Pro had their Mark 11 Evo, which is kind of cool. It's not their most like famous first stage, but yeah, it's nice to see they're upgrading things. But yeah, any Any links to what I've spoken about today are going to be down in the description underneath this video. Remember to check out our website, scubadivingmag.com. Check out all the latest scuba diving news and our magazine. Otherwise, remember to like, share, subscribe, do all that good social media stuff wherever you're listening to this. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.